Welcome back to our summer series. Today is a really special episode commemorating a very important event in history. President Richard Nixon ended the gold standard and ushered in the fiat money era on August 15th, 1971. So it's the 50th anniversary that we have officially been off the gold standard. I want to talk about where we are at today. Were we better off before? I could not think of a better expert for this conversation than Jim Rickards, author of Currency Wars and numerous other bestsellers. Jim, always good to have you on our show. Welcome back.
Thanks, Danielle. It's great to be with you, especially on this special anniversary. You know, the 50th anniversary of anything is the golden anniversary. So I think
how ironic, right?
At the risk of putting a pun out there, we're going to talk about gold. But yes, the golden anniversary of Nixon going off the gold standard.
So I want to ask you because, when we got off the gold standard, it was to many economists' delight who thought or still think that gold is a barbarous relic and that we are much better off on the fiat money system. And in fact, our economy would have never thrived had we gone off the gold standard. Were we better off before or today, Jim?
Well, we were much better off. Actually, we were better off before the Fed. The United States people hate central banks. We had two that we got rid of before the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. But the first bank in the United States we got rid of in 1812. The second bank we got rid of in 1836 under President Andrew Jackson. From 1836 to 1913, there was no Fed, and it was the greatest period of prosperity, low inflation, invention, efficiency, almost in recorded history. So we get along fine without the Fed, and we're much better off with the gold standard, no doubt about it. When you said economists criticize gold, I would just remind the audience of two things. Number one, economists are wrong about almost everything. So if you actually look at their track record in that sense, they seldom get things right. Certainly the Fed never gets the forecast right. And I wrote a book which I know you're familiar with, The New Case for Gold. But that book is not just another book on gold. I specifically refuted, there's 7 or 8 persistent criticisms of gold that you hear over and over again. They're all wrong. And I just took them one by one and said, here's why it's wrong, here's why it's wrong. And so that's kind of the baseline in terms of understanding why we're better off with the gold standard.
So the economy thrived better under a gold standard than the fiat monetary system. And now, would you argue that the greatest point in favor of the gold standard is that the Fed wouldn't be able to expand or retract the monetary supply as much or as little as they want?
Well, not as much as they want. That's a very good point. People say, well, the standard criticism, and it's wrong, but the standard criticism is, the great thing about the Fed is they can do that. They can expand the money supply and contract the money supply as needed to keep inflation under control or to grow with the economy. Well, you can have that with a gold standard. In fact, we did. From 1913 to 1971, in various ways, we had a gold standard, but we also had discretionary monetary policy. The Fed was expanding and contracting the money supply from 1913 to 1971, and we had a gold standard. So they're not incompatible at all. But it does mean that you can't go too far. So it kind of puts a lid on things. Until 1945. The law in the United States was the base money supply, M0, that's what the Fed controls, could be 2.5 times the U.S. gold hoard, the gold in our possession at the market. So taking originally $20.67 an ounce, later $35 an ounce, take the amount of gold times $35 an ounce, and whatever that number was, multiplied by 2.5, and that's how big the money supply could be. But so you can't go beyond that. But I actually talked to Ben Bernanke about this because you hear over and over, the gold caused the Great Depression. Gold was the problem in the Great Depression. And I researched it. And actually the leading scholar after Milton Friedman was Ben Bernanke. And he showed with, very precise detail that the money supply during the Great Depression never exceeded 100% of the gold. In other words, the money supply could have been 2.5 times greater than it was in the Great Depression with a gold standard. So gold was never a constraint. The Fed screwed it up. The Fed messed it up badly, but it had nothing to do with gold because they were nowhere near the ceiling. And when I talked to Bernanke, I said, Mr. Chairman, I said, this is my understanding of your research. Do I have it right? Do I have a correct understanding? He said, yes, you do. So gold was never a problem in the Great Depression. So you can have both. You can have a gold standard and discretionary monetary policy. You just can't get crazy.
So I know we've spoken in past interviews about the likelihood of us returning to a gold standard. I know you said it probably very unlikely, even though there have been some politicians who have been vocal and pushing forward for this. What would a new Bretton Woods system look like for you? Is it tied to, or is it involving digital currencies then, Jim? What do you think?
Well, there's a lot of confusion about digital currencies, and people think of Bitcoin and all that. But the central banks are moving towards central bank digital currencies, which are not cryptocurrencies. The message traffic can be encrypted, but digital dollar is still a dollar, a digital euro is still a euro, and a digital yen is still a yen, and so forth. The central banks would still, have discretionary authority over monetary policy. It's just that you probably wouldn't have any paper money. And payments in a digital dollar, for example, could be faster and cheaper than what we have today. We all use credit cards. That's an electronic payment, but there's a merchant acquirer fee of 2.5% on, when you charge something, the merchant gets 2.5% less than what you pay because they have to pay that amount to a processor to get their money. Well, you could probably eliminate that. So it would make payment systems cheaper. We might have wallets at the Fed. We might, Jim and Danielle and the artists might have an account at the Fed. You could just intermediate the banking system, but that's not inconsistent with gold. In fact, I've written recently about how, we're going to be walking around with 400-ounce bars in our pockets and purses. No, obviously, probably won't even have a bag or a purse of 8-gram coins, which was true prior to World War I. But why couldn't you have a digital gold-backed currency? In fact, some versions of that already exist. So all you're doing, you put the gold in a safe place outside the banking system. You have an account, you send them the money, they buy the gold, there it is, and then you use your debit card in gold.
Just entertain us for a second here, Jim. Let's pretend we were on a gold standard today.
Right.
What greatest problem would it eliminate?
Well, it depends how you do it. And this is the problem with gold standard. Gold standards have failed in the past, as we know, and governments always make the same mistake, and it's a mistake you have to avoid, which is they get the price wrong. When you go on a gold standard, you're fixing a parity between, say, dollars and weight of gold. You're measuring weight of gold in dollars. So it's no different than any other cross rate. If you have the euro US dollar cross rate or the dollar yen cross rate, well, this is just going to be a dollar gold cross rate with the gold measured by weight. But you got to get the price right. So could you do it at $1,800 an ounce, which is about the current price? Well, legally you could, but that would be a fiasco because it's highly deflationary. In other words, people say you can't have a gold standard because there's not enough gold to support commerce and leverage and industrial and commercial loans and the whole financial system. There's not enough gold. That's nonsense. There's always enough gold. It's just a question of price. Now, could you do it at $1,800 an ounce? No. But could you do it at $15,000 an ounce? Yes.